We have a special guest here today from the American Society for Testing and Materials, the largest voluntary consensus standardization organization there is, as they say, to some degree. We have a Miss Katherine E.Morgan, the president. She's been involved with ASTM, from what I understand, for 30 plus years. She also sits on ANSI's board as a board member, as a director at large, and she's been involved with ANSI for a long time. So I wonder, Katherine, do you accept and condone and approve of your mission statement for ANSI as half a nut fuck you, said by Russ Chaney on a telephone recording to me in 2019. As a matter of fact, since he was the chairman at the time, what that really means is that that's as if you said it directly to me. Yes, it's a sad thing, but a true thing, that as he is the chairman for the organization that you belong to, that you sit on the board, when he said to me in 2019, half a nut fuck you, Katherine, it's as if you were saying it. Katherine has a very long history for the American Society for Testing and Materials. She's had many family members reaping the benefits of the financial boon that the ASTM brings to her family. We have that from 2017. I'm not going to mention any names, but trust me, I have to say this. Yes, she had some family members on board. We're going to give her an education because she really needs one. I think she already knows that the mission statement for ASTM, since she's been there so long, is what Russ Chaney said. Russ Chaney, by the way, when he called me up, and I'm going to tell you what propelled him, is that in 2019, I exposed the factor of A2LA, an accreditation body for laboratory accreditation, Katherine. I'm sure you know, are well aware of it, very cognizant of the fact. And I made a video concerning that A2LA sits on ANSI's board right over by ASCLD Lab, which ANAB owns. And ANAB sits by those two, and ANAB also does laboratory accreditation. Katherine, I put that out. There was an impropriety because A2LA, like ASCLD Lab, like ANAB, sit on ANSI's board right over by many of these forensic laboratories that they're issuing standards to. Okay, they're, certificates to, certifications. So we did that. And Ashley Morton, who was employed at the A2LA at the time, wrote me back underneath our video, said ANSI and A2LA are two separate accreditation bodies. When you go into the file of ANSI, it doesn't say anything that they're an accreditation body, but they are what they are. In fact, let me just show you here, if I may, Katherine. ANSI is an accreditation body too. This is from Cargill Beef, their certification, and it's from the British Retail Consortium. It is a certificate of quality. The problem with Cargill Beef is the factor that Cargill sits on ANSI's members of management board, the accreditation body of their certification, as you see, Katherine. They also sit on ANAB's Management System Accreditation Council, which grants, suspends, and withdraws accreditation of certification bodies. That's kind of a conundrum. And when they're sitting on ANSI, Cargill that is, they're sitting by the USDA and FDA. Isn't that a tender moment? We're going to continue on. So she said that. She said they're two separate bodies. You're going to find out when I show you this, and you need to see this. You probably already know. And if you do know, you should be fired from any job that you have, because this will be your mission statement. Because no matter what you say and what you try to weed a lot of, you cannot weed a lot of this. Now, the lawyer did. Jameson Carroll. You'll see this, though. Let me just say this. So I did that, and at the time, Russ Chaney called me up, and at the time, Russ Chaney was the chairman of ANSI, And I'm going to play this for you, Catherine, and then I'm going to give you a little bit about me, a little bit of history about who I am and my background, so that I'm not just hitting you out of the blue, Catherine. And by the way, this video is ANSI's mission statement, half a nut fuck you by Russ Chaney, chairman, silenced by corporation member ASTM, Katherine E.Morgan, president, CEO, whatever. And here it is. Let me bring, where is he? Here he is. Let me bring them all out. And here you go.
Russ Chaney, please leave a message and I'll return your call as soon as possible. Record you.
Yes, Catherine, he did say, half a nut fuck you. And at the time, he was the chairman, which means that he exemplifies what ANSI is. He exemplifies, and what he says is who ANSI is, because I've been involved with corporate America. I know about code of conduct. We were trained annually on it. I guess Russ Chaney was not. Let's continue on. During the 2019 deal, I wrote a letter back to Joe Bhathia. And what I discovered in the code of conduct of ANSI, if you have a complaint, you send it into ANSI, and Joe Bhathia, and from what I've gathered, since he was the chair, both of them would discuss the issue. Well, he couldn't discuss it, Joe Bhathia, so he had to send it to the attorney, Jameson Carroll. And I'm sure you know him too, Catherine, of Carroll and Weiss down in Atlanta, Georgia. And what Joe did is he sent the audio file and he sent my letter. And all I wanted, Catherine, in the multitude of videos that I've said and said again, I just wanted an apology, and I'm sorry. So let me play this, and then I'm going to read you what Jameson Carroll said.
This is Russ Chaney. Please leave a message and I'll return your call as soon as possible. Record you.
So, what Jameson Carroll said, their attorney, ANSI's attorney, after analysis, we were unable to identify any harassing or objectionable content in the brief audio file provided. Well, I will say this too. I find that quite offensive in the fact that he would say such a thing. But I received a letter, Catherine, from an attorney of 40 years, several years ago. And he told me about state and federal courtrooms, and these are his exact words on the email. Nearly everything you see when litigating in any court, federal or state, is an illusion. In the political world, we call it blue smoke and mirrors. The Cambridge Dictionary defines smoke and mirrors: something that is intended to make you believe that something is being done or is true when it is not. So basically, what Jameson Carroll did is put the smoke and mirrors and basically deny the factor that he heard what he actually heard. In fact, let me go a little bit further, since Russ Chaney was a chairman and is the chairman for the 2022 Nominating Committee, and that's where we're going to hit upon very shortly. That means all of you involved, from the director positions for the board, all the way through to the government agencies, all the way through to the corporations. It appears that they approve Russ Chaney's mission statement or mantra, half a nut, fuck you. I went to New York to see where ANSI was. I did. There was no signage up there, Catherine. Also, I went down to Pickett after they rejected me from ANSI's board, and rightfully they rejected me because Russ Chaney is the nomination chairman. Nomination chairman, or the chairman of ANSI, he still professes half a nut fuck you, and you must condone it because you sit on the board. If you don't know what he said to me, shame on you, now you do. And what do you think? as the president and CEO of ASTM? That's what I'm asking. Well, I also went down to Washington, picketed them. I held a sign up. We got stopped by some federal agencies like the police, Secret Service, and there was an FBI guy walking around. You could tell because the FBI still hasn't gotten over the fact that if you want to not be exposed, don't dress like you're in the 50s. But anyway, we're going to continue on. The reason why I do this, Catherine, is because Jameson Carroll wrote us in September and stated that please do not direct any further communications to ANSI board members or employees. Any concerns you have should be addressed to me because what I'm going to expose now, if you don't know it, and you did know it, but maybe you don't, maybe you do. If I keep on going, it'll be a bad Jackie Mason stand-up comedy routine. So we're going to continue. Let me just introduce myself. I'm Daryl Guberman. I'm the CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. We've been open since 2011. I assist companies in manufacturing and quality and special processes, along with ISO certification and many different derivatives. And also, my background is aerospace. 40 plus years aerospace, medical implants, medical materials, printing, and plastic distribution, where we dealt with every industry under the sun. We applied, we put a 54-page booklet into ANSI's nomination committee. The 16 pages of it are recommendation letters from our customers who know about this whole mess about quality, ANSI-ANAB, about communist China, about Wuhan, China, etc. Okay, and we put that in. There was 9 questions that they asked me, and on top of it, let me just give you a little bit. In June, we saw this of 2022. We wrote them, and Eleni Konstantopoulos, very nice person, gave me the package to to go through and put this thing together, which came to a 54-page document, which I'm sure nobody ever put into ANSI, but I felt very strongly about it because my idea was to be a conduit for the small mom and pop shops, 5-person, all the way up to 100, maybe 150 people that have really no say when it comes to the board of ANSI, because the board of ANSI only has corporations and federal agencies. Very small, not even any representation for the small mom and pop shop on the board. I felt that with my background and abilities that I can assist ANSI further their progress and get rid of course, their mission statement said by Russ Chaney in 2019 and probably still kept it to himself in 2022 when he was the chairman of the nomination committee. I filled out those 9 questions, letting the board members know that is what my goal would be, to assist in doing that and furthering the quality initiatives, the true quality initiatives, not the half a nut fuck you initiatives, that would be involved in pushing ANSI's processes, procedures, and wants, needs, desires, etc. in the United States and in other and in the world. So I put that in. At the bottom of this, and by the way, out of all this, in that package was a form letter from Joe Bhathia congratulating me on applying for a director-at-large position, just like you. You're the director-at-large. And you make a very large, from what I've gathered and looked into the background, you make a large financial boon by being on ANSI's board. And who signed the bottom of this? Well, first off, Joe Bhathia, his letter. In the letter, you can click on a link that brings you right to the Code of Conduct of ANSI. What is it? And that's the first thing I looked at before I filled out any documents, because you want to know the lay of the land. Just like I did in Washington before I picketed ANSI, I want to know the laws, the regulations, where to stand, where to walk, what to say, etc. I did that 3 weeks in advance. Filled out the documentation, sent it back to the Washington PD, but I was only one person. If I had 1,000 people, then they probably would have dragged their feet. But I was only one person, so the Washington police have a lot more to do than to bother Daryl Guberman. Although they did approach me, and they said First Amendment and all the rest of that fun stuff. So Anyway, and so did the Secret Service. They walked away after. But getting back to this. So, and by the way, there's no signage down in Washington either. On Northwest L Street, 1899, there is no signage. You have about an $84 million company. I don't know, can they, the salaries are so bloated that I guess they don't have enough money to pay for a sign for ANSI. But I think this should be the sign that's out there, half a nut, fuck you. Maybe Russ Chaney was talking about the quality dispensed with an ANSI-ANAB certificate and any IFMLA certificate as well, since they are equivalent to accreditation as ANAB. So at the end of the 9 questions, and I read, by the way, I looked at those code of conduct. Russ Chaney failed on every step of the way. And the worst thing is that Joe Bhathia kept quiet. The Jameson Carroll, the attorneys, blew smoke and mirrors. But let's continue. At the bottom of the 9 questions was this. The committee appreciates your interest in serving in an ANSI leadership position and your willingness to provide us with additional information. Sincerely, Russ Chaney, Chairman of the ANSI 2022 Nominating Committee. Isn't that special? Human nature has it, Catherine, that, hey, I don't even know the guy, but he knows me. So does a lawyer. So does Joe Bhathia. And now you do too. But what this says about your integrity, what this says about ANSI is a shame, because Russ Chaney was the chairman when he called me, and then he's the chairman again of the nominating committee representing ANSI. So basically, again, Catherine, it's like you saying to me via ANSI, half a nut, fuck you. So we continue. Some of my customers in 2017 and 18 wanted to get ISO 17025 certified for a laboratory. And we looked into it. We studied the standard. We've seen the standard before. We've looked at it. And of course, there's revision changes and all that. So we studied up. I looked into ISO 17025 and I found an article on a deposition from this vice president of accreditation for ASCLD Lab, ANAB, etc. Her name was Pamela Sale. What she said was very exposing as time progressed because of the 2019 release of the COVID-19 virus. Supposedly from Wuhan, China, she made supposedly reality. She made probably probable and more than likely. That's what she said when she gave her deposition. This is what Pamela Sales said upon deposition about, laboratory accreditation. And I have the actual document release, newspaper release article on it, and also about the Department of Forensic Science, where ANAB, the accreditor of the laboratory, had to withdraw their certification for glaring quality issues in 2015. One of the issues is that there is no commonly agreed upon set of standards that forensic labs around the country have to follow. Instead, there are informal guidelines that labs can choose to follow or not, which means that the lab in Wuhan could have, should have, but they didn't. Because of what Pamela Sales said, it is more than likely the release is true from Wuhan, without a doubt. And ANSI-ANAB, IAF are involved with that quality mess. So we're going to continue on, Catherine. We pulled some articles, and it says a majority of forensic failures have happened in accredited labs. Make matters worse, there's a ton of information. You could put in laboratory failure, and you get a ton of information out. In 2015, there was an article in the Washington Post. National Accrediting Board, ANAB, suspends all DNA testing at the DC Crime Lab. The major evidence that calls into question the competence of ANAB is the 18 months and more during which quality auditors from ANAB and internal auditors from the Department of Forensic Science, which sits on ANSI's board, missed non-compliances of such magnitude as to warrant suspension of accreditation, Catherine. And this is the one that affected that Pamela answered because she was under deposition. And this is Austin's crime lab failure points to a national crisis. This was in September of 2017. I'll gladly send you that article, 203-556-1493, or Daryl, TQRS, DARYL, TQRS at yahoo.com. We'll gladly send it to you. After disturbing, Austin's crime lab failure points to national crisis. As disturbing as these revelations are, the Austin lab is not alone. Similar scandals have occurred in labs in major cities across the country, including neighboring Houston, as well as St. Paul, Detroit, New York, and Philadelphia. In 2015, the FBI lab in Washington, D.C. admitted that nearly every examiner in the elite FBI forensic unit gave flawed testimony in almost all trials in which they offered evidence over a period of 20 years, according to the Washington Post. Those trials included 32 death sentences. Karen, I would say there's a quality issue. Here you go, Catherine. I want you to look at these two certificates. And remember this, it's coming up very shortly that ANSI-ANAB, our underwriters from the articles that we've picked out, are underwriters which they take all legal responsibility for the International Accreditation Forum and the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation, ILAC, which you will see. Up here is ASCLD Lab, which would be considered the registration logo. Over here, down here, you have the the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation and ANAB. What do you have, a double accreditation body there? Who knows? It's ad hoc. That's what Pamela Sales said. And I'm going to let you listen to what Marvin Schechter said, an attorney, about these certificates. You have ANAB up here, which illustrates that it is an accreditation body, not accreditation, but a registrar. And you have it down here, ILAC and also ANAB, the two accrediting bodies. And remember this, ANAB and ANSI and ANAB are underwriters. Marvin Schechter in 2011 basically said what these certificates are. And he basically said this. In fact, ASCLD Lab could more properly be described as a product service organization which sells for a fee a seal of approval. And that's basically what you see here. The words that many use, especially like ASTM, voluntary consensus standards, they've failed, Karen. Catherine, they failed terribly, okay? You see it at Boeing with the 737 MAX, the 777 and 787 failures. You see it with Pfizer. They skipped quality processes manufacturing the COVID vaccine along with Johnson & Johnson. They also skipped quality processes. And what happened is Pfizer had 15 million vials returned because of contamination, and you also have the factor that Johnson & Johnson had about 60 million vials returned because of contamination. All three of those organizations, Boeing, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, sit on ANSI by the FAA, FDA, USDA, DOT, CDC, NIH, FTC, FBI, EPA, and all of those bodies, all of those government agencies have had their data taken. Now, with voluntary consensus standards and all the rest of this mess and all the bullshit that goes along with it, I'm sorry if I say that, that's a quality term. Let me put it to you in another way. This is DREC. DREC is a little bit better than bullshit. It kind of means the same thing, but that sounds better, DREC. Obfuscation is what you utilize for voluntary consensus standards and other areas and arenas of quality. It is the action of making something obscure, unclear, and unintelligible. Another item that we go to, Catherine, is impartial oversight. As you can see with Russ Chaney, if he was a demonstrative leader, more so the CEO, Joe Bhathia, he should have demanded Russ to, do an apology. Instead, they got the lawyer involved who tried to do smoke and mirrors, and now they have to suffer the slings and arrows. And by the way, this goes to Jameson Carroll, the lawyer. And this goes to all the lawyers that we have involved with this, because many companies, have their lawyer teams and all the rest of the stuff. This is all factual. I'm playing you an audio file. But what I've discovered in the court, in court, what I've discovered after dealing with an ANAB ANSI shill for more than 3 years, and I won the case, is that You can have defined data of the truth, and the judge is there to make money for the plaintiff's attorney and also the defendant's attorney. They're the CEO. Isn't that a joke? So if you send me, and I'm telling you, if you send me a cease and desist order, this is number one, freedom of speech. Number two, this is the truth. And this is the truth. And that is why my family name is upon my business, Guberman PMC. Integrity, honesty, and the truth. What do you bring to the table, Katherine? Any of that? Because by you sitting on ANSI's board and Russ Chaney saying half a nut fuck you condone that. And if you didn't know it, now you know it. You should do something about it. 2013, Katherine, I gave a speech at the American Society for Quality. At the time, in 2013, you have ASQ and ANSI, the American Society for Quality, the American National Standards Institute. They owned the American National Crediting Board 50-50. A Dave Levy was sent to the meeting that I was speaking at to not disparage me, but unhinge me, to make me look bad. Well, he couldn't do it. In fact, he praised me and they approved me. 50% of ANAB said, yes, Daryl, ANAB has no problem with what you're doing. In fact, we support you. I not only have it in their words, I have it on audio and I have it on video that Dave Levy said that. I don't make these things up. In 2016, a former ANAB vice president, chairman of the IAF, and also a principal in the IAF tax form, the 990 tax form, incorporated in Delaware, by the way, international accreditation form, Randy Dodry, asked us and invited us to join either the IAF or ANAB or both. We refused. Now, this is what gave us the other 50% component. Any good attorney who's got a shred of decency would say, you know, Daryl's right. Because you can't play with these words, though Randy, when he wrote that, tried to get out of it. Well, Randy, I know you're out of quality somewhere, you're whittling around somewhere in ANSI and ANAB, but you can't get out of this. This is what he said. But we recognize and accept. But we recognize and accept there are conformity assessment bodies and accreditation bodies, such as your body and your accreditation body, that is not part of the IAF and ILAC structure, International Accreditation Forum and International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. And this was the other 50%. We had 100% approval by ANAB without even joining it, because they knew that we had a lot of information. They knew that I'm like and I say this humbly, when it comes to quality, quality is not a Russ Chaney, half a nut fuck you that he said. Quality is about making sure the products that you produce are top notch and get rejected before they go out the door. So Randy sent us a letter in 2014. Let's go back when he was the vice president of ANAB, the chairman of the IAF, and on the IAF tax form as a principal. An IAF MLA, multilateral agreement, is equivalent in accreditation to ANAB. And remember this, ANSI and ANAB, and it's coming up right now, is an underwriter for the IAF and ILAC, which means they take responsibility for any of those accreditation bodies that are out there, that there may be FUPAs going on, might be rejectable items. As you can also see, Katherine, Iran and Pakistan are on board. Do you like that? Sitting on the IF at the time of this mess, and you're going to find out, is Iran, Pakistan, Lockheed Martin, and ANSI and ANAB. I only use those five and five only. Okay, you have Pakistan and Iran. Pakistan, who harbored Osama bin Laden, the mastermind of 9/11. And also Iran and Pakistan admitted to harboring some of the terrorists of 9/11. And I'm going to say this. This is not to the people of Iran or Pakistan. This is to the politicians. On top of it, you have North Korea, and you also have Libya, who sat on the IAF, but they got their certificate taken away because of lack of payment. We pulled this article and we took a snapshot of it because we knew once we did a video on it, they were going to take it down. But this, without a doubt, this shows you that ANSI-ANAB are underwriters for the IAF and ILAC. An underwriter is any party that evaluates and assumes another party's risk for a fee. Now we're going to get into this, Catherine. I know you've been sitting around, and let me just say this. She had a lot of her family on the breast of ASTM in 2017. We have that data. When we saw that, we said, we didn't look at 18, 19, 20, but we do have the data on 2017 where she had family members on the breast milk of ASTM. ASTM has been very good to Catherine's family, just like ANSI has been very good to her as well. ANSI is the American National Standards Institute. They have two facilities, one in New York, one in Washington. I visited both of them. No signage outside thus far. Maybe they put it in after I left. They have it's a not-for-profit, non-governmental corporation, not-for-profit, and they have federal agencies and corporations on board. Catherine, here's where the rubber hits the road. I love that statement because it's very true. In 2015, Randy Doherty was a vice president of ANAB, chairman of the IAF. He was also the principal on the IAF tax report. Okay, he handed over leadership to Zhao Jinwu, a communist Chinese national who was involved with our quality since 1994. He is also the chairman, actually the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services that certified the Wuhan laboratory in 2017 with a ISO 17025 cert for laboratory. And as Pamela Sales said, they have no protocols. They're basically out of control in the labs. So in reality, if they said that the virus was released from Wuhan, Pamela Sale conferred to that, confessed to it under oath. And you also have the factor that he, as a communist national, has to listen to Xi Jinping, who demands all Chinese nationals to take your data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. You have ANSI that took over complete control over ANAB in 2018. Federal agencies and corporations on board. Sample. Let's go to 2017 while they're still up here. Randy was advertised on the Department of Homeland Security as an ANSI-ANAB, as the vice president of ANAB. While his partner here, a communist Chinese national who is mandated by China to take your data through the China National Intelligence Law, while his buddy here sat on the IAF as chairman. 2017, remember, he was also over in Wuhan, China, issuing a certificate of ISO 17025 from the China National Accreditation Services. Randy sat there until I exposed it because he's a private company. A government agency is not supposed to do it, but you have a Phil Matheson. At the time, he's still involved, who sat on ANSI getting compensated very nicely. At that time, it was a royalty payment, which the IRS has no functional data to let you know whether a royalty payment should be taxed or not taxed. Plus, Phil is collecting his federal pension or salary or whatever you're going to say. So this is it. So it's like your company, ASTM, being advertised on the DHS, or having my company, Guberman PMC, being advertised. It is impossible to do so. But because I guess Phil Matheson, he's the director of standards for the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, he's on ANSI. Randy was on ANSI, yet the only issue is that Zhao Jinwu, and I say this again, every federal agency that sits upon ANSI had have their data taken by China. Also, you have 10 different registrars in China that can issue an ANAB certification. This is a good one, Catherine. This is the one that really makes me laugh. Remember, in 2015, the IAF was given to or handed off to a communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu. The IAF, International Accreditation Forum, is incorporated in Delaware. Joe Bhathia, the CEO, gave a speech at the Association for Equipment Manufacturers, who also sit on ANSI's board. The title of it is ANSI CEO Joe Bhathia on standards, don't let your competitors determine your future. Well, when he gave this speech, he allowed China to determine ANSI's future in 2015 when Randy handed the IF to Zhao Jinwu. But you will see Joe Bhathia in all kinds of pictures, China shaking their hand, laughing. Oy vey. Anyway, This is what he said. Would you really want to have your competitor dictate the future of how you do business? And that competitor could be somebody not just from the US, but somebody from China, somebody from Europe, somebody from another part of the world. I will read it slowly this time. And then I'm going to show you, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow citizens, and my business associates, and my customers, and my future customers, I'm going to show you this. Would you really want to have your competitor dictate the future of how you do business? And that competitor could be somebody not just from the US, but somebody from China. Well, guess what? In 2015, China had already taken over the IAF. Who sat on the IAF in 2015 was ANSI and ANAB. So Joe Bhathia should have stepped down because they were controlled and manipulated by communist China from 2015 to 2021. Because remember this, China has the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7, which mandates espionage. And here we go, business owners. You have Zhao Jinwu standing in the laboratory in Wuhan, China, handing over an ISO 17025 certificate. At the time, he was the chairman of the IF, International Accreditation Forum, incorporated in Delaware. Also, you have him as the factor of the China. He was also the executive of the China National Accreditation Services, which is equivalent in accreditation to ANAB, which means that ANAB and ANSI take full legal responsibility because from what I've showed you, they are an underwriter for the IAF and ILAC, where the China National Accreditation Services sit on the IAF. Several months ago, Anthony Fauci, NIH, was inquisitioned by Senator Rand Paul. I think they give out the questions to any of them. The senators, congressmen give those questions to the person they're going to inquisition probably a month before. So let me just tell you this. NIH, CDC, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, FDA, USDA, FBI, DOT, etc., they all sit together on ANSI. Fauci said when he was asked by Rand Paul about gain-of-function research, he says, I don't know. And here it is. This came out of a China technical magazine, and he said he didn't know. And this is upcoming events, second China-U.S. workshop on the challenges of emerging infections, laboratory safety, and global health security. And the very, very first item on the list between May 17th and 19th in 2017, I think, as I said, Zhao Jinwu was in the laboratory in 2017 March, so several months later, they came out with this article. And the very first topic over here is about gain-of-function research. I will gladly send you, Catherine, or anyone, I will send you the actual document, the entire booklet, so you can go through it. As I said, we exposed A2LA about being involved with ANSI, being on their board by ASCLD Lab, which is owned by ANAB, and ANAB itself, which is also an accreditor for laboratory. They also sat on the IF, being controlled and manipulated by communist China between 2015 and 21. And you hear me say controlled and manipulated. Catherine, the reason why I say that is because China has a China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7, which mandates espionage. So they're controlling and manipulating. I told you about Ashley Morton, the person from A2LA. She said A2LA does not sit on ANSI, and they are both American accreditation bodies with equal standing. Well, I always thought that ANSI was a standards writer and not an accreditor, as I showed you with Cargill Beef. That changed. Also, SurfSafe as well. SurfSafe back years ago were rated F. They're Better Business Bureau, but they will say, we're not part of the Better Business Bureau. But regardless of that, today, this year, they were rated A in January. At this time, looking at SurfSafe on the BBB, it's rated C-, and it's got the ANSI logo on it. As I said, you have Russ Chaney, who is the chairman, who again, I will say, and it's sad, that you have the factor that Russ Chaney contacted me as the chairman, and you know, what he says, do you believe in? Catherine, and here it is.
This is Russ Chaney. Please leave a message and I'll return your call as soon as possible.
Yes, he did say that. Half a nut, fuck you. And the attorney, again, through blue smoke and mirrors, said, after analysis, we were unable to identify any harassing, objectionable content in the brief audio file provided. So, Katherine, I ask you, as the CEO of ASTM, as the board member, director at large, we do not do this over sour grapes or any other thing that they could say about me, because we've handled the slings and arrows that were tossed at us when we first opened our business. Even after 2013 and 16, when we had full approval by ANSI-ANAB, as you have seen, we got it. We even got sued by what I think is a shill for ANSI-ANAB, because Randy said it in an email, a force to be reckoned with. I know him best. I have deep respect for him. He is the leader of accredited certification. Well, there was some kind of relationship there, but we won that case. And we will win this case too, because this is a major case. When you have a chairman that states this, all of you are involved. Yes, all of you are involved, and it is sad. It is a real sad thing, because here it is. The board approved it, the membership approves it, and it looks like the government and corporations approve what Russ Chaney said. As the chairman, you all said that to me, Katherine, and you're probably thinking that right now. What is this guy doing? I'm telling the truth, and that's all I'm going to say. And if you have integrity, you will do something about this. All I asked for was an apology. What I got was blue smoke and mirrors. And what I did when I tried to make an improvement with ANSI, applying for the director at large in 2022, I had somebody's feelings get involved with the right thing. Doing the right thing would have been calling me in and apologizing. Instead, they refused me. Now you have to suffer the slings and arrows of the truth, which it is. 203-556-1493 or Daryl, TQRS, @yahoo.com. I am sorry for the length of this, but she probably doesn't know that Pakistan, who harbored Osama bin Laden, and also Iran, who harbored some of the terrorists, both of them admitted to harboring the terrorists, are sitting right over by the organization that she sits as a director at large. Shame on you.